I hope that that was some good work together. I know we were able to dive in, and I really enjoyed the conversation. So what we wanted to do was bring everybody back and start to report out on the key themes that we heard. And so hopefully we have everybody back, and so we'll go ahead and we'll just kind of go in number order if that is okay. Group one. So our task here, what we're hoping everybody can do is just share some. We're going to spend about 15 minutes. A little less than, hearing key themes, initial reflections from your SWOT analysis, and any current or potential urgent policy proposals or endeavors that you want us to really support or oppose. And so if that came up in your group, I don't know that it'll come up in every group. So we'll go ahead and break out group one. Do you have a reporter? Oh yeah, sorry, there's 7 groups because we did have a public group that met. So we're going to hear from them as well. So group number 1, Lindsey.
So I was the facilitator in our group, and I'd love if any of the members of our group wanted to chime in too. It was actually a really wonderful discussion, and I think everyone kind of came forward immediately with some thoughts. But I just wanted to highlight, I think that we talked a lot about just the value of our community college system, and also some of the unique challenges that they're going to be experiencing as we move into this time, which we talked about in July. But there was some interesting points brought up, for example, that there's some advocacy that might be occurring around expanding the use of Pell Grants and what Pell Grants can be used for, and that might be something that this group could look into and show some support for, recognizing that the importance of the trades here in our local Contra Costa County, but also just thinking about how that's an important part of education as well, and that perhaps it's a long-standing need to be able to use some money like Pell Grants for trade programs.
Great. Any other key themes?
Is there anyone from our group that wanted to chime in on something they felt was particularly poignant? Kelly and Tom are both smiling at me. I think that was probably a good summary of a lot of what we talked about, but I have lots of notes I look forward to sharing.
Okay, great. Group 2, where are you? Who was your facilitator?
Is that our group?
Yes.
Yep, I think that's us, Patty.
Okay. We spent a lot of time kind of talking about, the current situation. My company is letting go 700 employees in October. And these are, highly skilled, high paid jobs. And we kind of talked about that there's a tendency for out migration. We're going to be losing not just these folks, but other people that have lost their jobs. They're going to be leaving the state. It's less expensive, taxes are lower in other areas. And so we're losing a chunk of our talent. Bob gave us some stats about the hospitality and retail industry and how 65% of those businesses that have closed will not be reopening. And there's a huge, chunk of our workforce as well. They tend to be, less trained, maybe less educated, highly skilled type jobs. And so we kind of bridged that, and we also had some information about folks that are in the childcare industry. And these are kind of our vulnerable workforce that probably will not be returning to work. And so there's an opportunity to kind of bridge to some training programs. And maybe it's community colleges, maybe it's trade certification programs. Keith was talking about a new entrepreneurial resource that's available. The challenges getting funding for some of those organizations. We're seeing, we talked more about opportunity to bridge rather than what the current threats are.
Great. Anything else on that group? Okay. I was the facilitator for group 3. And so we did, jump into our SWOT analysis, certainly some shared key themes on the value of community colleges and on the threat of losing talent and losing losing people right now because of what's going on. So certainly that's similar. We spent some time talking about that, you know, this is a very resourceful community. There is a lot of wealth here, and there are a lot of individuals and organizations that we can tap into to help bolster us during this difficult time. And, you know, definitely growth sector such as healthcare and a lot of access to, you know, strong education sector as a strength. Certainly weaknesses we talked about, the energy sector is hurting, you know, marathon closing, as Patty mentioned. And also just, you know, one of our group members said schools from A to Z, you know, in the sense that schools as employers are struggling. Their employees are dealing with big new challenges. Obviously the distance learning, the opportunity gap, and everything in between. And so a lot of the efforts to close achievement gaps have been stalled, and it's just a really challenging time. And we spent a lot of time talking about our industrial base, and that we have that often parents are barriers to young people thinking about careers in our industrial sector, and the way that the industrial sector that is still here is very innovative and is really a source of some high wage sustainable jobs that are interesting and important to our region. And so kind of what we ended up heading toward is, you know, that we really need to celebrate the opportunity around innovation and the technology that keeps our industrial base here. And so what would that, you know, in terms of thinking about, you know, and the fact that the companies in that space have the money to invest in R&D and need to tap into that. So, you know, we talked about the vulnerability of California if Silicon Valley, the tech companies do leave. And so, you know, really, how do we flip it? You know, Contra Costa could be a lead on the next generation of industry. You know, we need a statewide marketing campaign to help us capitalize on that. So again, great notes, great conversation. Anybody from my group want to add anything else that we talked about?
You said it well, Kristen. I think we just sort of zeroed in, or some of us zeroed in on the workforce system. An opportunity for us clearly is to demonstrate real capacity and strength at a modern workforce system that helps particularly reach out to a diverse audience, creating pathways into modern industrial work, which, you know, as Patty and others have indicated, are big opportunities for our county to bring both workers, but also employers to invest and expand in our community as well if they see a deep talent pool and a robust pipeline to draw from.
Great, thanks, Kish. We also did touch on the tension between California's statewide very green agenda and what that might mean. We really need to figure out and work with the industrial base about the opportunities to operate in a green manner under our regulatory scheme. So a lot to do there. All right, mindful of time, it's 9:49. Group 4, here we go. Who is in group 4? Anyone?
I was in group 4, but I got booted up by Zoom, and so I don't know who the facilitator or record keeper was.
Laura, were you keeping track of our conversation?
I did take notes, so I'll feel free to jump in, anyone. We discussed trying to find a way to encourage construction in the area. It was brought up that a lot of future construction jobs developments have been put on hold in this uncertain time. So, and those are construction, you know, brings new growth, new development, and also provides a lot of great jobs. So finding a way to encourage that. And also one of those things brought up is that childcare, there's very few facilities for childcare. A lot of them are in homes, and how childcare is going to be changed possibly dramatically long-term, where childcare will be more education as well as childcare, not just watching children, but educating them. So new facilities will be needed. So that was another thought, and also looking at childcare and how we move forward with that to meet the needs of working parents, and also the educational needs of the children with schools taking on a whole different look these days. So That was the gist of it, unless anyone else would like to throw something in.
Okay, group 5.
Hi, so I was the facilitator note taker for group 5. We had Leo talk about in the consulting world where he works, that they have continued throughout the shelter in place as an essential business, and it really hasn't impacted his business directly. But he does see that some of his clients, including those in the transit world, have had to furlough lots and lots of workers, and that these are people who are really going to need probably retraining, and that they might be people who would work very well in moving into the trades. We had Aaron from the banking world, and Aaron talked about too not seeing a lot of impact yet, although really expecting it, especially because he concentrates his work in commercial real estate and really checking in and making close contact with his customers to see how things are going for them because of more and more people working remotely and reduced need for workspace. Donna with the Workforce Development Board, federally funded, and so in fact her funding has increased significantly, or maybe not significantly, but has increased largely with COVID. They have monies for COVID impacted people. The problem is being able to reach the people because services are being provided remotely. And if people don't have the technology to be able to access remote services, that's a huge barrier. As well as because there are remote services, people just aren't as aware either of what might be available to them. The Workforce Development Board also has tons of data from the EDD, and it can be broken out in our county by market sector, demographics, region. So she is very data rich for our group. And then for SparkPoint, I spoke about too, just kind of the nonprofit world, that for many of us, our funders gave monies for COVID relief. And now when it comes time to fund for general operating, they don't have the money anymore. And so we're really being hit, so many nonprofits, with reduced funding opportunities, with then having to furlough or lay off staff. SparkPoint specifically, we are very data rich too around debt, income, savings, and credit. For our clients, we measure that when they come in, and then every 3 months or when something significant happens. So we do have data to share on our particular clients.
Perfect.
Group 5, anybody else to add anything? Great, thank you.
That was great, Betty. Thanks so much. Okay, we're crunching on time, but I want to hear from group 6 and group 7. So group 6.
Hi, this is Eli. I took some notes, and facilitator, I believe, kind of jumped in. A couple topics I know we're short on time. We talked about, we had a lot of childcare and school folks represented. So there was a lot of disconnect in regards to the distance learning and having the students have access to internet and or the equipment that they need in order to do what they need to do. A lot of workforce shifts, a lot of layoffs, some new hires, which means new trainings. And then also with the ever-changing guidelines for childcare and school, just in making sure that you have the proper equipment and supplies. Sometimes they're hard to get. Sometimes you don't have the finances for it. And then when the guidelines change, being able to quickly pivot, and sometimes, again, have the financing or the training in line to meet the needs. Lots of demand and pressure on getting those equipments and items, getting the finances and the training on how to interact more remotely than in person. Those were kind of the key things. If there's anything else from my group.
Okay, great. And then we had a group 7 from the members of the public that have joined us. Is there a volunteer to report out? I might lean on Cora, maybe, but who's up from our public?
I was on mute.
Oh, excellent. Kristen. Jim, take it away.
Good morning, everybody. So in our group, the public group, we had Linda Best, former CEO of this incredible organization, Maura Connell and Tamina Alon from EHSD, and Patience Ofudu from the Workforce Development Board. And from the EHSD, just chock full of metrics as to what is occurring in our community. And what EHSD does, it basically administers federal programs here in the county. And we did discuss the unemployment rate, which is at 13.4%. And then from patients' perspective, so we get the data from EHSD, and with the Workforce Development Board, what I always appreciate about this organization is that, you know, they're analyzing what tomorrow's jobs will be and create training for our citizens and folks that are struggling with employment. And areas such as airlines, hospitality, and service is where patients have seen the biggest hit in our community. And then we also address the with schools starting, distance learning, and the digital divide, and organizations that are working to ameliorate that challenge.
Great. Thank you, Jim. So I am mindful of our time, because we do want to end on time at 10. I did want to let you know, I'll be sending you out a flyer about this. We were contacted just in terms of immediate actions and opportunities. The Haas Business School at UC Berkeley is looking to work with 10 organizations supporting small businesses across Northern California. You'll receive free support from a team of MBA students for 2 to 3 months this fall. So we'll include that flyer in our post-event survey. So really, we're trying to keep this not a time-intensive lift and just really get your best thinking during our meetings, but it's essential that you complete the post-event survey. So we really want you to share your best thinking both about the process and the substance to help impact the agenda of our next meeting. So we will meet again in 2 weeks, Wednesday, August 26th from 9 to 10. We will, again, always trying to improve our system. So please look for the post-event survey and please participate in it. We'll send out the flyer about the UC Berkeley opportunity. I do think that there is a lot of important work together. I had so hoped that I was wrong and being too much of a naysayer when we met 2 weeks ago about the lack of a deal on federal stimulus. And so that hasn't gotten better. There's only 3 weeks left in the legislature to get anything done. I do, we need to push and push and push to try to get as much federal and state relief as is possible and as makes sense. And so we'll continue to make sure that we're paying attention to all of that as we plan our agenda. So I just want to thank you very much for all of your engagement and look forward to continuing to roll up our sleeves together. You have our contact information. Let us know, and we'll keep at this. So thank you, everyone, and have a terrific day.